basketball podcast, Playing the Field, Field Journal 007. Today I'm co-hosted by Meats. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Phil? Thanks for having me on.
Had to get you back after the last time you were just sulking, absolutely upset. You were a shell of your former self. It was depressing for the whole league. And that's what's going to get us into our topics here. You and Prime and Tiny and everyone used to talk about coasting. We mentioned that last time. Do you still believe that coasting is a thing, or is that just an excuse that we use when we're losing?
Coasting is definitely a thing, and I've been guilty of it before. I think, especially guys that are out there winning 14, 15 games a season, it's nearly impossible to walk into a game against the Bears or the Jets and say, all right, I got to take this game seriously because they could beat me. In no world do they think they could beat them. Obviously, they can if they take a day off, and sometimes that happens. That's how those guys, sometimes end up with 6, 7, 8 wins. Just guys taking them lightly. And part of my slump and rebounding, I think it just really took that out of me. Like I'm gonna walk in every game with a focused mindset next season, and just not take anybody lightly.
That kind of got me into the second topic, which was about your turnaround. Things weren't looking too good. You wound up making the playoffs. Was it something like in your fundamentals that you realized, or was it just a mental thing? Or what would you say can you attribute to your turnaround?
I really wish I could pinpoint it, but I can't. In terms of my overall play, I really stepped up in the second half of the season with a focus on being conservative, and that really cut down on my turnovers because I wasn't trying to force it deep every other play. And that resulted in closer losses to like Faz, and I think I lost to Dump by 7 at the second game last season. And then it started turning those wins against the Patriots, against everybody else on the schedule, and that's how I was able to win the last 6 games. Was just I had to really take a step back for a minute and think, all right, what am I doing and what can I do better? And it was just stop turning the ball over. So that's what I made the effort to do.
You made the playoffs. You wound up losing. Walk us through that playoff loss. What happened in that game?
Yeah, going into the playoffs, when I had won 4 in a row or whatever, I was like, okay, I can maybe start thinking about the playoffs now, just looking ahead. And I was like, oh, geez, I really hope RD gets that 2nd seed because I do not want to play the football team. And that's exactly what ended up happening, is I had to play Washington. And I don't know if it's a matchup thing or if it's a mental thing or he just has my number, but I cannot play with that Washington team. I've played him 3 times now, QP, new guy, whatever you want to call him. I played him 3 times now, and I've never lost by less than 13 points. Like he beats me down every time we play.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the stats a little. 35-21. His passing was 11-12, 223, 2 tutties, and 1 interception. So outside of making, I could have been a tip ball. I didn't watch the game. Outside of making 1 bad decision, he nearly completed every pass against you, and then was just efficient with the running game. And then there was just nothing terribly fancy. Your offense, 15-28, 209, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Your running game, 15 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown. So is it more like his defense just gives you trouble, or what's exactly the mismatch?
I don't really think I played poorly offensively. I think he did a really good job against the run. And I had like an above average day to an average day on the offensive side of the ball. I can't really be too upset with what I did. I think I turned it over once and I punted like twice. Really it's the other side of the ball. I just, I could not stop him. That 1 incompletion, that interception. I think I said on stream, I didn't even see Murphy there to get the pick. So I know he didn't see him. So that was just, Madden being Madden. You didn't see a guy there and he got an interception. Just lucky on my part, and that almost allowed me to get back into it because I think I scored a touchdown at the end of that drive. And I was just like, you know what? For me to beat Washington, I just need him to make mistakes, and I need to be mistake-free, which I was not. So it wasn't a perfect game for me. and it was a very good game from him, and that's just how that's going to go.
It was pretty much like I'm looking at the team stats on Daddy Leagues. You guys were pretty much dead nuts on everything. Red zone offensive, red zone percentages, except like the biggest thing looks like the third down percentage. You were only 29% on third down. He was 80%. So it just feels like, especially when you look at his 11 and 12, he probably was on longer drives and kind of put a little pressure on you. And I don't know. But we'll see what happens next time because I'm sure you guys will meet up. You remember there was an article that Faz Fabio posted. It was about the SML as MCU, and everybody had a character that he assigned. It was kind of a neat article. Who do you think is the SML's best villain?
Well, the best villain in the MCU is Thanos, like easily hands down. He might be the best superhero villain of all time. But I can't give that to Faz. I know he likes to call himself Thanos. But you know, he's very, very good, and he's right on the cusp of a Super Bowl. And actually, going forward, I think he's my Super Bowl favorite this next season. And I'm gonna have an article out later this week or next week detailing that. But it's got to be Prime, and I hate to give Prime all the accolades, but even when people think he's past his prime, for lack of a better term, he's there winning games. He was a pretty quiet 14-2 this season. He didn't talk much about it. Nobody really said much about it, but he ended up grabbing that 1 seed, and that helped him avoid Bomber, and just went and walked through the Super Bowl, beat Dan in the overtime, and the rest is history.
I think it was quiet because he didn't walk the dog on the big name guys. The people that were definitely lower tier guys, he blew them out. Look at Noel, 46-3, October 31-7, Matt 41-17, the Bears 40-22, and then he had a close one against October. So it was just really he wasn't consistent in the regular season in terms of like how bad he was beating people. And then, like you said in chat, he's not quite as loud. But then it came to the playoffs, and the Browns stunned the Jaguars, and like, oh, this could be legit. But for Prime, I thought it was gonna be a close game. I didn't expect a 45-0 spanking. So I don't know. He's just winning different right now. His defense is actually probably better than his offense. I think that's what's really salting away a lot of these games and keeping him in the close games. Obviously, I think what I'd like to talk to you about next is just overall your Super Bowl thoughts. What's kind of like the biggest surprise for you? Was it that Prime was there? Was it that it was a 31-7 blowout? That RD was back? Or I mean, what were your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
I don't think you can ever be surprised that Prime makes a deep playoff run, even makes it to the Super Bowl. So for me, the biggest surprise of that game was the final score. It was, sometimes people will say, final score wasn't indicative of how close it was. Well, okay, this final score kind of was. Prime dominated that whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Akers had 60 some yards on the ground, and that's how you beat RD. You force him to throw. I know because I've had limited success against Akers, but I've had that success against him before. And that's exactly what Prime did. Akers had 15 carries, 63 yards. Tua made one bad throw, really, and it ended the game. It was a 14-point swing. So yeah, I wish I could say that it's what I was expecting, but it really wasn't. I expected it to be a much closer game.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the biggest surprise for everybody was just that the final score wasn't that close at all. Prime only threw the ball 11 times, and he didn't throw the ball very much the last game against Dan. 6 of 11, a buckle 5, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and then it's just been the JT show. 18 carries, 84 yards, and then Mac had a couple runs. I mean, he did enough offensively to, get some touchdowns, and then, defensively he stopped the run, or his roster stopped the run, and Tua wasn't impressive. He just, I don't know. It was an interesting Super Bowl to watch. Like, you just thought that RD was going to be able to, this is the drive that he's going to break off a big run or hit him with the RPO or something like that, and he just wasn't able to get it going without the running game. So I'd have to agree with you. The biggest surprise for me was definitely the 31-7 final score. But I guess for Prime, he's probably the only one that it doesn't surprise because he calls RD Mr. Boring, and maybe the boring gameplay or whatever was the reason why he was able to win. I want to talk about the off season we're heading into right now, or that we're in right now. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the free agent pool yet, but there's definitely a lot of good players out there. We're looking at Davante Adams, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Cam Jordan, Rashad Penny, Shaq Thompson, Marlon Mack, and those are just, the first 10 guys on the list. Is this, from like a skills position, free agency, it feels pretty well rounded. Obviously, there's no like big quarterback out there, but there are some decent quarterbacks if you're looking for a stopgap guy. But I don't think I've ever seen this many 90 some odd overall wide receivers, and well, then there's quite a drop off after that. But I'm kind of impressed with the free agent pool. What do you think about it, or if you had a chance to look at it yet?
Yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to log on yet, but just based on what you said, I know the later we get into a cycle, the better free agency gets. Mm-hmm. It's usually pretty bad at the start of the season or start of the cycle because guys have that spending money. Well, now they're getting in issues where guys are wanting $30 million a year because, people give out 1 year $55 million contracts or whatever. And it just totally inflates the market for that. But just those three top guys alone, I'm going to have to take a look at that because I know I have a pretty solid wide receiver core myself, but you always want to be able to add one of those top playmakers for the right price.
Right.
It sounds like in chat, some people were not excited about the amount of guys out there. And if you don't have a lot of money to spend, sure. Yeah, okay, maybe it's not. But
I don't have money to spend. I got $6 million, as everybody can see on the screen. I got $6.4 million in cap room. But I still am just kind of blown away that the top 10 are that elite. There's a lot of times, like you said, that you just go in and it's just dog crap for players. Like you just go in there and you're looking for a difference maker, especially if you're on the cusp, like a 7-9 team or a 9-7 team looking to maybe win your division or just squeak into the playoffs. These guys right at the top, Davante Adams, that's a difference maker. Keenan Allen or even Mike Evans for a team that's right there on the cusp. Those guys are going to elevate your offense. And then Cameron Jordan, he's 36 years old, but he's 88 overall, and he's one of those guys that just gets after the quarterback. So I think if you're looking to build a roster at a free agency, this is not the pool to do it. But I think if you're just looking to clean it up a little bit, add some guys in the right places, that I think it's definitely an exciting free agency class to take a look at. But I don't know. I guess I'm a 2-win optimist here, but
well, I've heard a few names that are going to make an immediate impact and potentially push a team from fringe playoff team to actual contender. So, it seems like a very top heavy win now class.
Yeah, and then even I mentioned quarterbacks. I don't know what this guy is rated. I'll have to take a look real quick. Trevor Hartwig, he looks pretty solid. I don't know whose quarterback he was. 91 throw power, 86 deep, 92 medium, 85 short. That's a guy that you can plug in right there to make a difference. And then Jameis Winston, he's right out there and he can make a difference too. Especially for guys that don't have a quarterback or whatever. I feel like this is a pretty solid draft class, free agency class. I don't know what guys are so bent out of shape about, but based on free agency, I'm not too impressed with the draft, to be honest with you. But I think between free agency and the draft, who are going to be the biggest movers? Who's in, who's out? So who's in the playoffs that wasn't in this season, and who's out that was in this season and won't be next season?
Well, it's hard to say before there's actually been any signings, but
sure. I don't know. Throw signings out the window, or the free agency out the window. Just what are your thoughts on who's going to be in and out of the playoffs? Because there's always a little bit of a shakeup on the teams that are in, especially like the wild card spots.
Yeah, actually, I keep a stat for division winners, and we only had one different division winner this season compared to last season, and that is like tied for league low. We usually have like 3 or 4. So I think the easiest and the go-to is to look at a division that's really tight all the time. And I'm going to go to AFC North. I'm going to say Woods does not make the playoffs this season.
Wow.
I'm going to say NYT comes back and wins that division. Hell, maybe Two-Step throws his hat in there. I know he went 5-11 this year, but
He's got Joey Burrow.
Yeah, he's one of those wide receivers away maybe from making a push for that division title, and it's a winnable division. So, right off the bat, I'm gonna say Cleveland, and then
Nice.
if I had to dig deeper, let's look here. I'm gonna go. I hate to do this, but one of those guys in the AFC West is not going to make the playoffs. Either DW or Future, and I love both those guys, and I hate to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But the AFC has some guys down there that are out of the playoffs this year that could make a push. Matt went 8-8, but he made a AFC Championship the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Two-Step throws his hat in there, wins the division, then you got the Browns and the Ravens both looking for a wild card too. So I think the AFC wildcard picture is going to be really interesting to look at this year.
Yeah, obviously, Prime Dan, I would even say Paulie's a shoe-in for next season. And where was the AFC North standings at? Yeah, you're right there with NYT 8-8 and the Browns 9-7. So that may not be too bold of a prediction to make on that. You might be right there. And then if you look over, the AFC West is pretty competitive. When you look at the Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos, all 10-win plus teams. But I think that Dan's kind of got the foothold on that. The only shakeup that you could see, and that's only because the mind games between Bomber and Prime. Bomber could potentially win the division over Prime, but I don't think that the Titans or Texans are going to make any moves. So if you're looking like you said, it would probably be, yeah, I think Cleveland. Maybe you could make a push on the Chargers being out, even at 10.
I think you can look at that AFC standings on Daddy Leagues, and you can circle those top 4 teams. And I'd be absolutely shocked if we go a single season this cycle without all 4 of those guys making it. The Colts, the Broncos, the Dolphins, and the Jags.
Yeah. And then in the NFC, you've got the Rams, the Redskins, or WFT, whatever the hell you call it. The Vikings, the Panthers, 49ers, Cowboys, and Cardinals were all there. Mike FML, had he not fucked himself, he was right there. He had it set up. He just couldn't win a game. I think that Grams, who's been up and down the last cycle or two, I think he could be a player that's potentially out, and you could put a guy like Mike FML in because the rest of, outside of Oz, the NFC North's pretty weak.
Yeah, I think Mike is an interesting team, and I like him as a player, and as a person. He can't throw 40 interceptions and have a negative 60-point differential. Oh, yeah. But the games that he lost, he got blown out. Right. And it's probably extremely demoralizing. And if Mike cuts down on the turnovers, I think he probably wins 11 games, at least.
I don't really have any faith in the other guys. I haven't seen enough out of the Eagles to be able to make a prediction on it. And from what I know of Colt, he'll go on spurts and then, fall apart. So 8-8, 7-9 maybe like where it's at. So about the only one that I could see would have been you or Grams as a team that would be able to be out but not in, just because you're in one of the toughest divisions in the SML. Obviously you got RD, Dump, and even Tiny is known to have some upsets here and there, even though he let Russell Wilson go, so the team's not quite as and DK. The team's not as good as it was at the beginning. But I think you're kind of in a rock and a hard spot up there.
Yeah, I look at the NFC and I see 12. I see 12 teams that are fringe playoff teams. Going down all the way to the Giants on the standings. Giants, Falcons, Saints, Eagles, Packers, all those guys missed this season that I could see making a push for it. Sure. That doesn't mean I'm going to pick them to win a playoff game.
Right.
But they could win enough games, especially if they have an easy schedule. Like, I think I didn't see the Eagles' schedule, but I think he had a pretty decently easy schedule this season. which resulted in an 8-8. So I think if those guys get favorable schedules,
Mm-hmm.
you could see a 12-team playoff race in the NFC.
The Eagles played what? Do they play the AFC North, the NFC South? Yeah.
Well, AFC North. There you go.
AFC North and the NFC South, really. I mean, what's his Dominic or Demuse? He's about the only consistent player in my division.
And Demuse had a rocky start to the season. He played in week 7, lost by 14, but that was a winnable game probably.
Yeah, that's hard to pick. And I guess I hate to use Prime's favorite word, but the parody in it of Jordan Love. I just keep going back on Mike FML. Jordan Love, man, he was the league leader in passing yards, and he had 38 touchdowns, but he also had 44 interceptions, was only behind Joey Burrow, who had 48 interceptions. That's kind of astounding how many interceptions are thrown in the SML. Does it shock you that they're that high and that many guys are throwing that many?
Well, no, and I'll tell you why. Because our quarterbacks in the SML, the players behind the quarterbacks, not the quarterbacks themselves, are not exactly pro esports caliber. I think maybe like 3 or 4 players in the league could go pro in esports or something, if that. So for a guy to throw 44 interceptions on just over 400 attempts, it's not terribly shocking to me. And it's not shocking that we see probably in the range of 10 or so players throw 30 plus interceptions a season.
Right.
Whereas you look at the NFL, pretty much every starter in the league is going to throw 15 or less. Well, you throw more than 15 interceptions in a season in the NFL, you had a bad season. But, you look at the SML, and the lowest interception guy in the SML is usually like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range, which is still a lot of interceptions.
Yeah.
So I can't say that's surprising.
When you look at, and I guess one last question for you, looking at the rushing stats, Cam Akers was the league leader, and he had 30 touchdowns. Do you think that he'll repeat as the rushing champion? Will there be a new one, or what are your expectations for the SML rushing champion? Just because the running game is like the stats are always eye popping, in my opinion, in our league at least. But just who would you think is going to take it next season?
So Cam Akers won the title by over 400 yards. 444 of those yards came against me in 2 games. So it's really a toss-up. I don't think there's going to be a lot of
game next season.
Well, that's my entire plan.
Well,
I think I had a top 10 rushing defense, just based on ball control, because I like to hold on to the ball. But if I keep punting it back, I'm going to get run over. So I'm focusing on the defense this offseason. I think my offense is set where it is. So I'm probably not going to touch it, aside from like maybe a backup wide receiver, backup O-line. So I'm really going to focus on the defense. He might still get 200 yards on me, but the plan is to not let up another 400 yards. I think Cam Akers is more valuable to his team than any other running back in the league. Because you take Cam Akers away and you end up with a 31-7 victory over the Rams. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say Cam Akers does three-peat as rushing champion.
I'm sure this isn't going to shock you because you're the stat guy. I just looked at it. Do you know how many guys were over 1,000 yards rushing in this league last season?
Oh, it has to be like 25.
Yeah, it's right at 25. And the guy that's 25th was Derrick Henry, the Titans.
What a great guess.
Yeah, so almost like you've looked at it or you got it in front of you. But
no, I had the top like 10 in front of me.
Did you? It's kind of crazy that many, damn near every team in the league can rush for over 1,000 yards, and then I'd say in real life maybe half break 1,000.
Yeah, it's also a little bit different because real life you see a lot more committee backs. But in Madden, there's almost no benefit to having a committee back, other than maybe putting a guy on like a carries restriction to keep him healthy, because it hurts development. And like Madden players they're just numbers. Like how good this guy is, what he's going to do. Why are you going to play a 98 overall? For 60% of the time and have 40% of the carries go to a 68 backup. Like it just doesn't make sense. But that's what you see in the NFL. Like I'm a Ravens fan. Look at the Ravens. I think they probably had like 4 guys with over 100 carries this year. So it's less of a game issue, I think. Obviously, running's very overpowered.
Right.
So guys are going to lean that way. And I expect that number to drop next cycle. But, we're always going to see that lead back on almost every team.
One last thing. I noticed that you don't have Prime's banner hanging. We're looking at SimMaddenLeague.com. Has Prime been breathing down your neck asking for his banner yet?
He has not. And you know why? Because he has 16 others to, warm his bed with. So
that's good.
I think I made RDs like immediately afterwards. And the last time Prime won the Super Bowl, I think I probably waited a full season to make it.
You just drug your feet intentionally, huh?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, hey, we all know he won. He knows he won. I'll get to it when I get to it. But I had work today and yesterday, so.
Sure. Well, we gotta have an excuse, buddy. We're looking at SimMaddenLeague.com. If for whatever reason you randomly clicked on this video, listen to me and I got the meats for 25 plus minutes. Check us out. Hit apply. There's an apply button. You just go on there, and you can be part of the primer. I don't know if there's any spots. I'm sure that they would remove somebody if you're a decent user or whatever, but all year long, not too many leagues out there could say that they can make it this long, especially right now in April. This is, I'd say, I would like to see the stats on, but I know from the fact back when I used to play lobby ball, like how hard it became to find matches after the Super Bowl. So this is the time of year where we're usually dead, but the SML seems like we're just picking up. And how quickly we advance from each week and just each season. It seems like we're pushing more and more seasons in each cycle. So at least it feels that way. But anyway, check us out, SimMaddenLeague.com. Meats, appreciate you tuning in or joining us today. And I hope,
thanks for having me.
I hope that everything works out for you next season. Hope everything goes good for you guys out there. Don't blow your load at free agent, boys. You're gonna be so damn cap strapped that you won't be able to make any moves. But you gotta try to resist. I know it's hard. I'm gonna turn my face cam on. And I know it's gonna be hard for you guys not to blow the big load, especially for my Minutemen out there. But good luck, guys. We could do this. Let's get the interceptions done. All right. Let's make a pact of brothers, brotherhood pact. Let's have less. No one is gonna throw over 29 interceptions. It has to be 29 interceptions or less, and we'll consider that a victory. So that's my challenge.
Send them all to Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, go ahead. Throw them all to Isaiah. All right, boys. Like, subscribe, take care.